Dianic witchcraft stands as one of the most distinct and influential traditions within the wide tapestry of modern paganism. Emerging during the feminist movements of the 20th century, Dianic witchcraft centers primarily in the worship of the goddess and places strong emphasis on female empowerment, autonomy, and sacred womanhood. While its roots are largely American, its ideological waves rippled across the Atlantic, influencing the shape of modern Irish witchcraft in notable ways. Understanding Dianic witchcraft provides critical insight into the evolving spiritual landscape of Ireland today. Dianic witchcraft, as it is known today, largely traces back to Zsuzsanna Budapest, a Hungarian-American feminist and witch who founded the Susan B. Anthony Coven No. 1 in California in 1971. Inspired by feminism, folkloric traditions, and resurgence of goddess spirituality, Budapest crafted a small form of witchcraft explicitly for women, by women, focusing on the sacredness of the female experience. She named her tradition after Diana, the Roman goddess of the hunt, the moon, and childbirth, an ancient symbol of independent feminine power. Though there are multiple streams of Dianic practice, notably Budapest's lineage and the later and more eclectic branch established by Ruth Barrett, what unites Dianics is an emphasis on goddess-centered worship without the inclusion of male deities, female-only spaces for magical work in some lineages, rituals celebrating the female life cycle, menstruation, childbirth, and menopause, and political activism entwined with spiritual work, especially around women's rights. In its earliest forms, Dianic witchcraft was unapologetically feminist, serving as both a religious path and a tool for liberation.
In a very powerfully beautiful way about the pagan religions is that for women they say, look, you too are God.
Goddess worship is a larger concept than coven-based witchcraft, and its rituals are broader and more diverse. In Berkeley, California, the universal goddess finds a special place in a coven of feminists from which all men are excluded. Their leader is Hungarian-born Z. Budapest. Z calls this Dianic witchcraft.
Dianic witchcraft, in one word, is women's mysteries. That means women get together as women and devote themselves to a magical pursuit, and they take care of business, whatever the women in particular need.
You who circle the world with your oceans, sweet mermaids, sweet nereids, who swim within you, swim in our blood, embolden us, bring us your passion, your lust for living.
Another thing women's mysteries used to do is we used to judge. Women used to curse the enemies of peace and women. Women just used to have a blacklist, get out in front of the temple and tell the world that these people are bad, they should be curbed, they are warmongers, and they are bad for babies. And we did this until about the 4th century when it was stopped. And when women's mysteries were stopped, women's rights stopped, women's any kind of significance stopped. And that's when this whole silly idea came about that the Christians fed everybody that women have no souls. In women's circles, I like to have a balance of lesbians and straight ladies. Lesbians bring in the affection. There's a lot of very nice, affectionate, open nature with accustomed to be affectionate with each other type of feeling. Straight ladies are totally free. They do not perform for men. They can be totally themselves. So when I mix them together, it makes a very good combination.
When I was a little girl, my mother used to send me to the Catholic Church, and she would tell me, baby, go ask Father Fitzpatrick for a little holy water, and she'd send me with a jar. And I'd go get this holy water from the church, and she'd put it in the bucket with sugar and urine and a little perfume, and get a picture of one of the saints and mop the floors. And the whole time she was mopping the floors, she was telling the saint what she wanted to have happening, in her house. That's what I call being Louisiana Catholic.
Oh yeah, y'all side-headed Hattie, mother of the winds of change, queen of the transformers
So yeah, come dance with us, whirling woman. I was very surprised when I got my first consultation and was told that I was going to be a priestess. It took me 12 years to get initiated because, you know, I always wanted to be a movie star.
We remember here with the craft and in the women's movement and especially in the spirituality movement, the goddess movement, that they burned us systematically for about 600 to 700 years, not measly 15 years that Hitler was doing it. In the name of Christ, all denominations burned women, burned children. They used to spare children who were only under a year old, but the older ones, they used to strip naked in the name of Jesus, drive them around the bodies of their burning parents and flagellate them on top of it so that they won't forget the lesson. Europe suffered incredibly. They wiped out whole towns. And the born-again Christians are shaking the same tree that is exactly the same sentiment they are trying to sell. If we are in the 20th century, but they are as dangerous as they ever was.
Today, Dianic witchcraft encompasses a spectrum of practices. Some covens are strictly female only, while others are more inclusive of trans women or men sympathetic to feminist spirituality, depending on the group's orientation. Core practices include season celebrations, where Sabbats are observed with strong goddess-centered narrative, reinterpreting the wheel of the year to focus on female experiences rather than male-female fertility cycles. Ritual magic, which are rituals often involving on healing, empowerment, breaking free from patriarchal structures, and honouring the cycles of nature and the body. Myth reclamation. Dianics often retell myths to highlight female agency and power, challenging traditions' patriarchal readings of folklore. And community activism, where many Dianic practitioners link their spiritual practices to activism, viewing social justice as sacred work. Importantly, contemporary Dianic witchcraft has been shaped by dialogues around intersectionality, inclusion and trans rights. While Zsuzsanna Budapest's original form was centred on cisgendered women, newer branches of covens have broadened their definitions of woman and feminine to encompass a more diverse spectrum of experiences. While Ireland has its own ancient traditions of magic mythology and goddess reverence deeply embedded in the land and culture, the resurgence in witchcraft in Ireland in the 20th and 21st centuries have not been purely indigenous. Irish practitioners, especially since the 1970s, have drawn from various international currents, including Dianic witchcraft. There are key ways Dianic ideas have influenced in modern Irish witchcraft. One is recentering of the goddess. Pre-Christian Ireland was already rich with goddesses, Bridget, on Morrigan, Danu, and others. However, modern Irish witchcraft, especially post-1970s, have witnessed a stronger focus on the goddess as the central figure, not merely as part of a divine couple, but sometimes as the primary or sole deity. Dianic philosophy helped reinforce and justify this shift, encouraging practitioners to reconnect with female divinities in a direct, personal way. The influence of a second wave feminism in Ireland, especially post-1970s and into the 1980s, found a natural ally in Dianic witchcraft. Irish witches, like the American counterparts, began crafting rituals that celebrated female rites of passage, protested against church-imposed controls over women's bodies, and reclaimed the sacredness of menstruation, birth, and menopause. Today, many Irish witches, even those who do not explicitly label themselves as Dianic, incorporate feminist principles into their practice, such as reclaiming witchcraft as a symbol of female resistance, honouring women's mysteries and life cycles, and organising women-only circles for magical or healing work. Dianic witchcraft emphasises personal sovereignty, healing and trauma, especially patriarchal trauma, and creating sacred space for individual empowerment. Modern Irish witchcraft similarly prioritises personal autonomy and healing, often framing magic as a way to recover one's voice and agency, especially in a society still grappling with the historical weight of colonisation, church domination and gendered oppression. Irish witches, influenced by Dianic thought, often reinterpret Irish myths to highlight women's voices. For example, instead of viewing the Morrigan simply as a terrifying war goddess, practitioners may emphasise her role as a sovereignty figure, a symbol of protection, transformation and female power. Similarly, figures like Queen Maeve are re-examined not merely as symbols of pride and greed, as Christianised versions portray, but as complex embodiments of leadership, sexuality and autonomy. The influence of Dianic witchcraft has not been without friction. Some Irish practitioners argue that imported forms of feminization or goddess worship simply oversimplifying or misinterpreting indigenous traditions. Moreover, issues about exclusivity, such as the early Dianic movement's rejection of male or trans participants, have sparked dialogue within the Irish witchcraft community about the need for inclusive spaces. In response, many Irish witches today strive to balance inspiration from Dianic traditions with a deep respect for local ancestral places. They seek to avoid cultural erasure while still embracing feminist spirituality. Dianic witchcraft, born from the fertile soil of feminist revolution and spiritual longing, continues to cast a long shadow across the global witchcraft movement, Ireland included. Its emphasis on goddess worship, female empowerment, and the sanctity of body and nature resonates strongly with Irish practitioners seeking both spiritual fulfillment and social change, while Irish witchcraft retains its unique flavour rooted in the myths, land, and spirit of era. It has absorbed the waves of Dianic influence, reshaping itself in response to the needs of modern witches. In this ongoing dialogue between tradition and innovation, the legacy of Dianic witchcraft finds new, ensuring that the voices of women, past, present, and future, continue to sing through the sacred hills and rivers of Ireland. Sinead Scale is Misha de Lerhor Sean Thuma, Wheelwakes Osbor Quid Thama, August Arish, Slán, Gofol.